We're going to try a couple of different tools. We're going to try one called the patch tool. It is in the family of tools here under spot healing. We're going to try clone stamp one more time. And then we're also going to try selecting an area and copying and pasting it to move. So this is a photo I took last year. It's at a place called Fort Point, if you've ever been there. It's a Civil War era base that's underneath the foot of the Golden Gate Bridge. Golden Gate Bridge is built right over the top of it. It's a really cool place. Free to get into, only open on the weekends. So it was kind of a cold, blustery day. So I edited this to be black and white. I wanted the textures and the lines and the repeating stuff. And I was really interested in this man who was standing over here by the flagpole. But then these two people walked into my picture when I wasn't looking. So these guys are a little bit of a distraction I want to get rid of. Two other things I'd like to eliminate. There's a little pedestal here that just explains something about the cannons that are underneath those arches that we can't see right now. Nobody's here and it's just a big bright spot with a shadow underneath it. So that's something I want to remove. And then the other thing that I want to get rid of, like I said, this was built during the Civil War. So now that it's part of the National Park System, it has to have lighting for safety. So there's this bright silver conduit right here that shows up and runs across and around. We want to make that go away too, because that's not really authentic to the building and the architecture. So let's go with the easiest one first, which is removing this kid. So as we've done before, Command J, new layer. I'm going to name this layer because this project is, this time we're going to have 4 layers. So patch tool, type in its name. And I go over here to where the Band-Aid is. And the third one down is called patch. And patch is going to do some copying and pasting along with a little bit of blending of some pixels. So I just draw in a not perfect or precise manner, but just a very simple drawing around the edge of this pedestal with some information on it. And so now the computer knows what it is I want to patch. If I look across the top, I want to be clicked on the single square so it knows I'm making my first patch. I want the patch to be normal and I am patching the source. And I'm just going to click and drag over the side here. And what I'm going to try to line up or pay attention to is this line in the cement. So that lines up. And once I just click and drag, line it up the way I want, and then I simply let go. So click, drag, let go. It blends. To make the line go away, I hit Command D. And that is like a super sweet patch job. Really easy to believe that nothing had been there in the first place. Looks really good. So, okay, that's the easiest one. Let's go to the next one that's a little harder. I'm using Command plus to zoom in so I can see really well into my picture. All right, so this silver metal tube has to go. So we're going to use clone stamp because we need to really pay attention to the pattern of the brick and also that we're dealing with some very well-defined edges. So we don't want anything to be blurry or mushy. We want things to be very sharply defined. And the clone stamp allows us to do that. So we go to clone stamp tool. And on my brush, I'm going to make sure that we're at 100% hardness for this guy. Because again, I got to respect this hard edge of this arch. So, okay. I've zoomed in a whole bunch so I can see really well. I'm going to shrink the size of my brush and then option click and start going. Option click right down the line. Doot, 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 doot. You'll see I just go carefully back and forth and to make sure that I'm resetting my sample point after almost every brush stroke. And that is so that I am precise and that things go exactly where I want them to go. Also because the brick pattern keeps changing and the lighting on the brick pattern keeps changing. So I want to be adjusting that and respecting that as I go. You'll see that we actually hit a point here where the conduit is going to turn the corner, and I'm going to start picking from another place. I got to go right here. There we go. Now, right here, the conduit flips over to this front side. So now I have to change where I'm picking from right here. Go straight across like that. And then in here, to get that teeny tiny black tone, click above, and run around the top. So you would continue doing what I'm doing all the way along this conduit. This pipe. Keep going and going and going. So on and so forth. Now, you are going to finish it all the way across to there. Okay? I am not, because I want to move you on to the last tool. This line right here, this vertical line, that line is going to stay. That line is part of the rope for raising and lowering the flag every day. So that's authentic. We want that to stay. All right, so that's patch tool. And also I clone stamped on there too. So I better rename that. And clone stamp. Okay, last thing I'm going to do, I'm going to Command J one more time. This is going to be called People Fence, because we want to get rid of the people that are up here behind the fence. All right, so if I tried to clone stamp on this one, well, let's try the tools we know first. Try patch. If I were to circle around them and patch them, drag them down to another space in the fence, can get some pretty good alignment. Wow, that actually worked really, really well. I think that's because they've updated the Photoshop tools so nicely. A year ago, what would happen is that would be really, really blurry. Let me deselect. If I tried clone stamp, you lose that seam in the fence, and you get some misalignment there in the fence too. So while it does a nice job from a distance of making him start to disappear, you can see you have this irregularity in the fence that doesn't make sense. So let me get rid of that. And the other suggestion I had was to do this. You're going to go polygonal lasso tool so that you can make selections in a straight line. If patch tool doesn't work, one thing you can do is copy paste a section. And I'm doing polygonal lasso tool so it does things in a straight line for me. So I am choosing a large section of fence and a little bit of the concrete below and the sky above. And I'm going to hit Command C, and that will copy it. Command V will paste it. Now my picture doesn't look any different, but if I go here, if I call that fence part, and if I go up to Move Tool and I click right there, I can drag this over until it starts to blend right in its space. And it's hard for me to drag and drop it exactly where I want it to go. So if I use the little arrow keys at the bottom, I can move it up or down, left or right. So I can get that fence in a pretty believable spot. Now the bottom of the fence right here, it's not really working out for me. So I'm going to go Command T and just stretch it down just a little bit so that the fence is like a perfect match for that area. And hit return. And I'm seeing that I need to, just the very back of her like foot or her jacket showing up. So I'm just going to keep going over a little bit and then go up a little bit more. And check that out. There are no longer any people left. Smooth, clean, believable piece of fence right there, built in. And we're done. Okay? So that's how I would do that. If too much of the fence is showing up, you can go layer mask, brush, black paint on my brush. That is a monster size brush. And I can just sort of fade it right there. But as you can see, my piece of fence was pretty exact. So it makes the guy start to show up again. I don't want that. I'm going to bring him back in like that. So there's your duty, you guys. For each tool, please make a new layer and then give me the before, your layer panel, and the after so I can see all the different things you made disappear. And that's your last step for today. Turn it in.